Hello everyone, I hope everyone is having a good 4th of July. Mine has been fantastic. Not for any normal reasons like food or fireworks or family or anything because I've been alone in my bedroom, but because the Jay-Z album dropped and it is so good. Like you guys, I have to convince myself on the regular that I'm not allowed to talk about music on here because if I did, I would just go on for days. But it's fantastic, and that's all I'm gonna say is that it's fantastic and it rocked my socks off. No socks. They're over there. Me and Jay-Z go way back, y'all. That's a whole nother story for another day. Maybe I'll do like a Draw My Life sometime. This week's video is not going to be very funny. This is again one of those things that just came into my mind, and once it's there, I can't really do anything about it, and I'm just gonna have to make a video about it. I'm gonna tell another story, which means I'm gonna have 2 long-ass videos 2 weeks in a row. But I'm hoping it'll be like touching or enlightening or something. So this video is basically my coming out story. I just refuse to call my video that out of my defiance for cliches. So I think I knew I was gay like in the 7th grade, and then I really did not say anything to anyone for several years. It was my sophomore year when I became really good friends with this one guy. We were just talking one day, and I was really down about it for some reason, and he just kept on asking me what was wrong because he wanted to help me. And so I told him, and then he was the only person that knew for several months, and then eventually he convinced me to tell more of our friends, and then we got to the point where just like a handful of my really close friends knew. And the thing that was like always the hardest part for me and for my friends was that we were all really, really religious. And I'm not even talking like how like a lot of kids in high school are who go to church because their parents make them or tell them to, or because they want to go hang out with their friends at church and that's a fun time. There was one point in my life where I was like meeting with my pastor once a week, doing a Bible study once a week, a life group once a week, and church every week. So it was really difficult for us because we really didn't know what we were doing. I spent a lot of time being angry with a lot of those friends, but looking back at it now, it's just like we were so young and we just had no idea what we were doing. And even really to this day, I don't really have many answers on what it means to be gay and Christian. And I mean, that's a whole nother topic that I could talk about for a very long time. But it's a whole lot more complicated than you would think. And I'm not saying that from a point of like cockiness or arrogance. I'm saying that as someone who has spent years studying and researching and praying about this stuff. And I still haven't really found all the answers. And I don't think that all the answers are per se out there. And so eventually I told my high school pastor because me and him were really close and he was amazing. He was the first person that like I actually told in person because I was always way too nervous or way too scared to actually say the words. So whenever I told anybody, it was like through like text messages and stuff like that. So that was just a huge moment for me, and he was awesome. And he helped me a lot. He helped me in, whatever way that he could. And then he left. He moved to Kansas. It was like probably the hardest thing I've ever had to go through in my entire life. And at that point too, I was already just really angry with whatever friends I had that did know because we could never really see eye to eye on things. And so that was rough. And then I think pretty much ever since then, my faith has been really rocky. Because of that, I changed my mind because I was planning on going to like a Christian school and becoming a minister or a pastor or something. And I didn't have enough faith or didn't have enough confidence in my faith to do that at that point. So, kind of, I guess you could say, luckily, I fell in love with music and um, came to MTSU. When I was planning on leaving Louisville, I knew that I wanted to tell my family once I was in Murfreesboro in Tennessee. I was always too afraid to tell my family and then like live in the same house with them. For whatever reason, I never thought that they would do anything horrible. I never thought it would be one of those horror stories you hear where like kids get disowned and stuff like that. But I was too afraid because you just never know how people are going to react. You don't know how anyone's going to take it. And um, so I decided once I got here in Tennessee that I would tell them. I told my two sisters like a week before I left because I wanted them to be able to, I don't know, be there for my parents in a way. I know it's supposed to be the other way around, but I didn't want my parents to be alone, which is, I guess that's kind of weird, but I don't know. So I had been here for like 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm still kind of embarrassed about this to this day, but I told my parents in an email. I know it sounds really like weird or impersonal or whatever, but at this point I had kept it a secret for how many, like 4 or 5 years, and I didn't want to wait any longer. I felt like telling them was more important than how I told them at that point, and I knew if I tried to convince myself to tell them in person or at least over the phone, I would procrastinate and I would put it off longer, and I just didn't want to wait any longer. And so I told them one morning. I didn't hear anything back from them for a little bit. My dad called me later on that day, and he was awesome. He was really supportive. I think he was a little confused, especially with his faith and how that would work into it. But he was supportive. He told me that he still loved me and everything. My mom didn't talk to me for a little bit longer. I didn't see it was. I don't know how this happened, but she responded to my email like maybe 10 minutes after I sent it. I remember, but I didn't see that for like another 3 days. So I just didn't hear from my mom for 3 days after I told her. But eventually, they Skyped me. My mom wanted to drive down to Tennessee to have this conversation with me, and bless my father, convinced her that Skyping would suffice because it would have been a whole lot more intense and awkward and emotional in person. She basically told me the same things that my dad had, that she was confused, but it didn't change how she felt or anything like that. Um, she was hurt that I had kept it a secret for so long, and she'll still disagree with me to this day. But for me, I always wanted to be at a place where I had an explanation to give. I wanted to be okay with it. I wanted to be secure, and I wanted to have answers. And I've always been the type of person that I like to be independent. I like to solve my problems on my own. I would rather solve my problems and then tell you the solution than tell you about my problems and try to work towards a solution together. And so, yeah, um, I decided after I told my parents that that was the last time I was gonna have that conversation. I didn't tell my like extended family, and I probably hurt some of their feelings, maybe. But for me, telling my parents was the biggest deal. And at that point, I had had that conversation with so many people, all my friends and stuff like that, that I was checked out at that point. My parents were the big deal, and after I did that, I was like, okay, I'm done. Like you can find out through other people, which I kind of feel bad about, but at the same time, I don't understand people who get mad when they figured out that I didn't tell them, because if they were in my shoes, they would understand that that conversation has nothing to do with them, which kind of sounds impersonal probably, but it doesn't. When you tell somebody, it affects them in that moment. It affects maybe their day, maybe their week. I'm the person that has to deal with it every day. You know what I mean? So while I do feel bad, I don't feel that bad. And I find it so hilarious now that people sort of just know. One of my best friends, she said she could tell like the first time she ever saw me, and I was like, "What is that?" Because people didn't know in high school, so I don't know. Maybe it's a confidence thing. I definitely feel like I'm more myself ever since I came out. I guess that's what's to be expected. Alright, so there's that story. I promise next week I will make you laugh, and I'll try really, really super hard to do so. And so you better subscribe so you can see next week.